Hi, I'm Selena from Annie's Bookstop of Worcester, and I'm here with Robb Pearlman, who is a pop culturist. He is a Starfleet Officer, Rebel Alliance Droid, and Fellowship of the Ring fella. He's also a New York Times bestselling author of over 70 books right now. He's got like a bunch of them coming out this year. And his latest book is called Supernova, and I'll let you talk about it, Robb.
Hey, Selena, thanks for having me. It's good to see you.
Okay, thank you. You too.
So, Supernova, which I just happen to have here right beside me,
Ah,
is based on the new series Star Trek Prodigy, which is on Paramount Plus and Nickelodeon. This is a really interesting story. It's a middle grade novel that's in part based on a video game called Star Trek Prodigy Supernova, but it also takes place in between episodes 10 and 11 of the first season of the show. So it's drawing from a lot of different places, but it's based on the characters that everybody knows and loves, the crew of the Protostar, including hologram Janeway. Very exciting. Yeah, so it's sort of like a little bit of a jigsaw puzzle piece right in the middle.
So what I didn't say is most or is it all of your books are children's books?
Oh God, there's so many. How do I divide it up? Let's say 40% are children's books.
Ah,
And the others are either for grown-ups or they're for the whole family.
okay,
Really.
right. So what was the inspiration for Supernova?
Well, this one in particular, this is my 11th Star Trek book. I've been very, very fortunate to be able to play in the sandbox that Star Trek is, and I just go in there and I do my own little thing with it. This one, the series was announced and it launched, and it did really, really well, and people were really loving it. And the publisher decided, it was time for the first two Prodigy books. And because of my really great track record, with the brand and my love of all things Star Trek, they were like, "Do you want to do this?" And I was a little intimidated at first. This was my first middle grade novel. But I'm a writer and I love to challenge myself and try new things. And I jumped at the chance. And it was an amazing, amazing experience. So I was able to look at everything that was on air. I was able to get some of the scripts so I could really dig into the dialogue and the characterizations, and the story beats of it, and fill in some gaps that weren't necessarily in the show or in the game. So I was able to be a little imaginative and creative within the confines, but it was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Okay, did you actually get to go or watch the shows, and did you actually get to go on the set or anything?
Well, it's animated, so I
Oh,
wish I could go on
right.
the set.
That's right. Oh,
That would be
oh, the
amazing.
animation. Yeah. I'm sorry, I don't get. I
Oh
don't.
no, it's totally fine. It's totally fine. I
I would
mean,
love to see it.
I grew up watching cartoons, so but even the thought of being able to go on any Star Trek bridge, let alone an animated Star Trek bridge,
Now that
is
would be an interesting book, wouldn't it?
that would be fantastic.
That would
That
be an
would be fun.
interesting book to be able to go on
Yeah,
the set of an animated show.
yeah.
Hmm.
Don't know if anyone else but we would buy it, but still, I think
I
it's a
know,
great idea.
yeah, that's the problem though with these shows. If you don't get that particular channel, you can't see them.
True.
Yeah,
Yeah. But
unfortunately.
luckily now, Paramount Plus is available on so many different platforms. And this show in particular is available on Nickelodeon. So as long as you've got
Oh,
Nick, you can
okay.
watch the whole first season for it too.
Ah, interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, they're making sure to make this as accessible as possible, to Star Trek fans, young and old, which is great.
Great. That sounds good.
Yeah.
So what kind of research went into writing it?
Oh God, well, years and years of Star Trek fandom certainly
Yep.
helps. So they gave me the scripts for the first season.
Mhm.
which I poured over. I think I got the scripts, not all of the episodes had aired yet, so it was sort of like a little sneak peek. It felt like I was a VIP in some way, which was fantastic. And then I got a lot of information from the game that was being produced at the same time. And I am not a gamer by any stretch of the imagination. I can do Pac-Man and maybe Pong, and otherwise my hand-eye coordination is not good enough for anything. So I was able to, read the scripts for the video game and sort of live vicariously through all of the prompts and the codes that people would go through. So
Ah,
that was really, really great. And it was interesting to see what was in the game that didn't necessarily have to be in the book, because it's not a straight retelling of the game at
mhm.
all. It's really an adaptation of it. So you don't have to play the game to read the book. You don't have to read the book to enjoy the game. Having some familiarity with the show is helpful, because there are some characters who you may or may not be that familiar with. But I was able to draw on my Star Trek fandom and put in some of the Trek babble and the science speak, and use the word comms and bridge, which was fun.
Oh, great. So what was the biggest challenge in writing and putting out Supernova? And how did you overcome that challenge?
Um, it's always a challenge when you're using established characters that everybody knows to
Mhm.
get the tone correct. And the tone of the whole book, but also the way people speak and the
Mhm.
way different characters speak. So making sure that I was getting each character's voice to sound like the characters and not like me as the characters.
Mm.
It's always important for an author to get their voice out of it. Their perspective is important. But I didn't want Dal or Rock to sound like me pretending to be them. So it was really important to me to watch the series a few times to get their voice in my head. Sometimes the inflections on things, sometimes the way a line was read, and try to translate that into the written form.
Mhm.
And that was fun.
Okay. And is there any character that you particularly loved or hated?
Both.
Oh,
I loved writing Hologram Janeway.
I can
Um,
imagine. Yeah.
she's such a fantastic character, either as a hologram or a real person.
Mhm. Yeah.
So being given the ability to write original dialogue for that character, who is so admired by so many people, including me. It was just, it was a thrill and it was a delight. And I really wanted to make sure I did that right for all concerned. For all
Yeah.
concerned. The person I hated writing was a character called Star Killer, who, spoiler alert, is very closely associated with another character on the show called Dreadnought. So I had to make sure that the characters were similar enough where you could recognize them, but different enough where it was obvious that they were different things. And that was a bit of a challenge, because you need to be true to the story and you need to be true to the characters, but these characters have very different experiences,
Mhm.
which informs their action and the way they're seeing certain things, and how they function in this particular set of circumstances. So I had to really study up on Dreadnought in the show, and then be like, okay, that's the sort of the general parameters, and then put all of that to the side and be like, all right, well, how would this person react differently in this? So it was a little bit of a balancing act, but it was fun.
Mhm. So
He's
you
also the
said,
bad guy, and I hate writing bad guys.
yeah. Oh, I would think that they would be fun to write.
It's just I like people to be nice. I like nice.
You said that that you could read this book and not even really know the series, but as long as you know the whole concept of Star Trek, it would be okay. You'd understand it.
I think so. I think, Star Trek has had a very proud literary tradition over the
Mhm.
years. And as a fan, as someone who talks to other readers, I know that there are certain books that focus on specific characters
Mhm.
within the Star Trek universe. And even if you're not particularly familiar with that one character, you know enough about the general Star Trek thing to appreciate what's going on. And there are Easter eggs thrown in for super fans to really get onto. But it's important for me when I'm writing a book to really think about who the reader is.
Mhm.
So for this book in particular, I knew, of course, it was going to be a Star Trek fan.
Mhm.
Um, Hopefully it was, a young person who enjoys the series, but also I wanted to make it appealing to adults who
Mhm.
wanted to pick up the book and just, you know, even if they didn't see the show, would just appreciate another Star Trek experience for themselves.
Mhm. Yeah, I think a lot of Star Trek fans, including myself, would probably pick up any kind of a book that had Star Trek on
Yeah,
it.
yeah. And I made sure to put in a little bit of exposition so people understood generally who these people were, what was going on. If you get so details driven, like in episode 2, this happened, in episode 3, this happened, gets a little boring, and not particularly interesting to write. So I think as long as you're familiar with Star Trek as a franchise, this is the book for you.
Mhm. Okay, so what else can we expect from you in the near future?
Oh gosh, in the near future, for kids, I've got a Bob Ross picture book and 2 Bob Ross board books coming up.
Mm.
And then for grown-ups, I've got The Golden Girls Guide to Life coming out. And I've got another Bob Ross book all about making spaces and places for comfort and for artistry and for calm. And then there's a few things for all ages that I wish I could talk about. Um, oh, I have to sit on but they're
Mhm.
really, really exciting. They're sort of dreams come true.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
That sounds wonderful. I'm looking forward to finding out
it's a
what those
lot.
are.
It's a lot.
I think you said you had like 7 books coming out recently
Yeah, I
or,
think in
or
the next
soon.
year and a half, it's going to be about 7.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite part about being a writer? About the whole writing and publishing process?
Oh man, I wanted to be a writer ever since I was a little kid and got my first electric typewriter. Um, I love the whole process. I also work in publishing, so I love the whole process from thinking of an idea to getting it down on paper to looking at the design to actually looking at the final spreads if it's a picture book or the layouts. Um, and then getting the books in the mail and then smelling them, which is always really fun. I know that's silly, but there's nothing like the smell of a new book. um, and then just seeing the book on the shelf, but more importantly it's connecting with other fans and people who are reading the book, um, and how they've enjoyed it or how it's affected their lives or talking about that kind of thing.
So writing isn't your day job?
It is now.
Oh, okay.
It is
Phew.
now. Yeah, with so much coming up, I was like, all right, I have to
I was gonna
focus, Rob,
say,
focus.
7 books coming out in a year and it's not your day job? Whoa.
I'm exhausted, Selena.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Exhausted.
Okay. So what do you consider the most challenging part of the writing process, and how do you overcome that?
Oh man. So, I think it was Dorothy Parker who said, I hate writing, I love having written. Getting started is always the toughest part. You could have a fantastic idea. But then after you've got the idea, you've actually got to write the book. And that could be challenging, sitting in front of that screen with the little blank, blinking cursor on a blank page. It's like, oh, I have to do this now. And how do I do it? So, once I get started and I get the role, I tend to overwrite in my first draft, as a lot of writers do. That's why a good editor is super important. So usually my first draft is about this big, and then we narrow it down to that. But it's really, as long as I know where I need to start, what has to happen in the middle, and where I need to end up, excuse me, it's just connecting those dots, which sometimes is more challenging than others. Depends on the topic. It depends on the purpose of the book. All the books I do they have a reason to exist. They're always really intentional. And I want to give the readers an experience that they find enjoyable and satisfying. So, sometimes the most challenging part for me is just writing the end and sending it off. Because I'm always thinking, oh, maybe that should be another sentence, or maybe that sentence isn't correct. So sometimes it's starting a project, and sometimes it's ending a project.
Okay. What has been your favorite adventure during your writing career?
Oh, wow. I have to say, meeting readers face to face and having really good conversations about the books. So my first Star Trek book, Fun with Kirk and Spock, was
Loved it.
created because
Loved
I
it.
was going to all of these Star Trek events where people were talking about the deep emotional connection they had to Star Trek because they were watching it with their parents and their grandparents when they were kids, or their kids. So it was a real family experience. And I was also going to book events where people were talking about the picture books that they loved reading with their parents and their grandparents or their kids. And I was like, wow, the Venn diagram of those interests are really interesting to me, which is why I wrote Fun with Kirk and Spock, because it seemed like two great tastes that taste great together. So, talking to the people where they're living, where they're shopping, where they're working, at a con, at a book conference, at a bookstore, that's really, really rewarding for me, because, as a writer, I sit in this space for, X amount of hours every day. I'm completely isolated from the world. So actually having that physical interaction, even if it's online, with people saying the book made them think about something, or it was a great experience to share with their kids, or they gave it as a gift to their mom or dad, that's really gratifying. The whole thing has just been an adventure.
Okay. So what is the greatest lesson that you've learned so far in your writing career?
I think I'm also an editor by trade, so it's the value of the collaborative process of creating a book. One book is not created in a vacuum on its own. So you need a great designer. You need, if it's an illustrated book, a wonderful illustrator who understands and can work collaboratively with the author, usually me, sometimes me, on the finished book. But I think it's also, you just got to keep trying and keep doing it. And you could have 50 ideas, 3 of them could be good, and then you really have to believe in it. You have to believe in it. And if I know, for me, if I'm writing something that I'm not particularly into, it affects the end result for it. It feels less authentic. So I think I've been able to really think about what I want to do and how I want to do it, and to say no to some things. I try not to do it, just because I love writing so much. But I've had some projects where I just felt it just wasn't for me. I could do it, but I didn't think either the original property or the reader would be served as well as they could with another author. So it's really making sure you're coming from an authentic place, with intention.
Very important. And do you have any other pieces of advice that you'd like to share with other writers?
I've always said, It's never too late to start. If you think you've got a great idea, then go for it. And not every book is going to be published by a major house. Sometimes it's a smaller house. Sometimes it's a self-published thing. If you're writing for the intention of getting published and getting fame and fortune, you're going at it for the wrong reasons. Most writers I know write because we have to write. We've got to get that out. We're creative. We're at least I think we're creative. And I don't know what I would do if I didn't have that creative outlet for it.
Mhm.
And a lot of what I write doesn't go anywhere. Most of it just, not most of it, some of it just lives on my computer. So if you think this is what you want to do, even in your spare time, just for you, just for your family, just to create something that's going to be shared with your friends and family, then go for it. Do it. Believe in yourself and do it. And use spell check. Please use spell check.
Right. That's important.
Yeah.
Okay. My next question is about you as a person. What is one thing that most people don't realize about you?
Oh, wow. I could be really, really shy.
Okay.
I know, like, this is so gregarious. You wouldn't know. But usually at a party, I'm over there in the corner, just sort of watching everything
Hmm.
happen. I think a lot of writers were observers.
Yep.
Also, I don't know if I'm that great at small talk, so I just sort of recede into the background a little
Huh.
bit. If it's one-on-one, that's a little bit different for me. But if I'm in a huge crowd of people, I'm like, oh, there's so many people. Go talk to each other. I'll be fine. I'll be fine. I'll just sit here with the chips and salsa. It's okay.
So do you consider yourself an introvert or an extrovert?
I think I'm an introvert.
Mm-hmm.
I,
Yep.
I think I'm an introvert with like extrovert tendencies.
Yep. That's what it seems like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I have talked to so many authors, and almost all of them say that they're introverts. And
Yeah.
it kind of comes with the territory, because you're sitting there in an office, or a room by yourself writing.
Yeah.
And I think your companions are your characters.
Yeah. It's true. It's
Yeah.
true. A couple of weeks ago, I realized I hadn't left my house in 3 days. And a lot of people would be like, oh, this is terrible. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Fine with that.
Okay. My next question is, what question do you wish interviewers would ask you, and what would your answers be?
My God, that's a really good question. I'm always surprised that interviewers are like, can you believe it? Can you just believe all of this is happening? And my answer is no, I can't believe any of it is happening at all. I feel like I've been really, really fortunate and humbled by everything that I've been able to do professionally. And if you would have asked 8, 9, 10-year-old me if I would have written Star Trek books and a He-Man book and all of these books with these characters that I used to watch on TV or watch in the movies, I would have thought that was Looney Tunes. And then my original ideas, Pink is for Boys or Groundhog's Day Off or The Sublime Miss Stacks, to think that my books are in libraries and kids are taking out those books and enjoying them, and it's mind-boggling to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that I'd be on the New York Times bestseller list. What? It's crazy.
This may be a bad question for you, but which do you prefer, writing books in which the characters have already been created, or writing your own characters?
Oh man. I think it depends on what it is.
Okay.
Really. I've had amazing success with established TV series
Mhm.
and movies. And those are they're so much fun and they're so rich because readers of all ages, um, there's a shorthand with that sort of thing. And I really enjoy, because I'm a fan too, I love
Yeah.
affording people the opportunity to expand their experience with the thing that they love. I think it's fantastic. On the other hand, if it's something that came out of my own noggin, that is my own thing, that is its own sort of thrill, because people are introduced to this new character, or this new idea told in a different way, and being able to share that with them, and sort of open up a new playground for people, and inspire them to do it. Sometimes I'll get a social media post about a little kid who dressed up as Bob Ross because he loved my Bob Ross book, which is great. And then sometimes I'll get an Instagram post of a kid wearing pink because they love my Pink is for Boys
Yeah.
book. So they're both delightful experiences. They
Yeah.
really are.
Okay. So what does your writing space look like? And what do you need to have around you when you're writing or editing?
Well, you can see the background. So I like blue. Blue is very calming for me. I really like a clean area as much as possible because I sometimes have reference materials.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm old school. I love books. So I've got books piled everywhere and I need to be able to grab them. I've got a really big computer monitor because I'm staring, straight ahead all the time. And I really love to have things around. This, I don't know if you can see it, but this little Smurf,
Mm-hmm.
poet Smurf,
Yep.
has been on my desk for probably 30 years. This is my original Smurf. So, things like that inspire me, that provide comfort and remind me of the things that I loved.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was writing my new Smurf book, I was looking at Poet Smurf and being like, all right, inspire me, Poet Smurf.
Okay. And when you're writing, do you prefer music or silence? And if it's music, what kind of music?
If I'm writing a Star Trek book, I will usually have either a soundtrack playing in the
Mm-hmm.
background, or sometimes I'll have episodes running in the background,
Ah,
because I think that kind of ambient noise, it really gets me in the 23rd or 24th century, wherever I'm
great.
supposed to be at the moment.
Makes
Um,
sense.
and sometimes I found a white noise thing where you could play bridge sounds from the Enterprise. So it's just sort of a hum with like a beep every once in a while that sounds like you're just on the bridge. And
Yeah.
it could go on for like 6 hours or something. So I'll have that really just to get me in the world of it. If I'm writing something else, it's usually either white noise or quiet. Um, because I find that if I hear people talking, it's distracting to me when I'm trying to write dialogue,
Mm-hmm.
especially. Too many words confuse me, I think. But if I'm in a coffee shop, like that's great for me because there's a hum around me, but I'm not really paying attention unless it's a really juicy conversation, and then I just stop what I'm doing and I pretend not to listen.
Uh-huh. Yes.
Yeah. So it really depends on what I'm writing.
Okay. Now, do you have any favorite foods or drink that you usually have to have with you?
Coffee
Mhm.
all the time, all the
Mhm.
time. You can see the size of my mug. It's pretty big. By the end of the day, I can be a little rattled from the whole thing. But it gets me going. I like it warm, not too boiling hot, but it definitely greases my gears all the time. And then, if I'm into it, I could go a few hours and not get up from my desk at all. So then I'll be like, oh, I need some protein, and I'll have like a handful of peanuts or something like that. I can't tell you how many times I'll be like, oh, I forgot to eat today because I was doing this, or I'll be like, oh, I'll have dinner when I'm done, and then it's like, oh, it's 9 o'clock. I completely spaced. I sat down at 6. How did this happen?
Yeah, I've done that.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. I have two more questions for you. One is, where can people find your work aside from Annie's Bookstop of Worcester? And you can get Robb's book
Yes.
at Annie's. And you can call us at 508-796-5613, or you can email us at orders@anniesbooksworcester.com. And where else can people find your books?
Independent bookstores, I always encourage people to go there. Libraries across the country, support your local libraries. And then, the big boxes and online bookshop.org. Wherever fine books are sold, that's where you'll find me.
Okay, sounds good. And how can we follow your work and share your awesomeness?
Oh, thank you. I'm on all social media at Robb Pearlman. So Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and Mastodon and Post and whatever new thing is gonna happen. I'm there. But you could also just go to my website, robbpearlman.com, and that's where I'll be.
It sounded like you said mastodon.
Yeah, I did.
Mastodon?
It's a new thing, yeah.
I have not heard of that.
Uh-huh.
Interesting. I'll have to check that one out.
Check it out. Follow me.
Interesting. Okay, well, thank you so much, Robb. It's been great. And maybe sometime we'll see you at our store.
I'd love it.
Yeah,
So
so
thanks for having me.
you're not too far.
Day trip.
Yeah. Robb Pearlman, it's been wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.